and welcome to A Slice of Pie. Now, I actually think that it's pretty obvious that we've leveled up our YouTube game considerably. I mean, this is the nicest I think I've ever looked on the internet. So, let's roll that title card. So I do have to apologize right off the bat. We unfortunately were not able to actually release the vlog, not because it wasn't completed, but because I had a random idea that unfortunately adds some development time. You see, I decided to actually create an animated character and superimpose them onto real world footage, a process that I have never successfully done. And let's just say the character itself is still just in the design phase, I think. Let me see. Yeah, character's in the design phase. So maybe Wednesday, maybe the Wednesday afterward, but I really do want to do this bit. I really do want to start actually adding in some of my creativity to an otherwise cut and paste vlog from I wouldn't even call myself a B-rate YouTuber. Wow, that got dark really quickly. But, I guess, on a slightly more positive note, we finally got the lighting down. This is actually four different lights being positioned properly for this kind of style. I didn't take a class or anything about this. I just, it's kind of sad, but my stepdad's actually a lighting designer and electrician for theater, and I didn't pick his brain until right before we moved about it. Yeah. All right, so, and then the last thing we're gonna talk about today is I'm actually going to flip things up. We're gonna talk about the tech news next instead of the game news because we got so much game news. So let's actually just go right into the tech news. All right, so Intel's fucked. Like, not even like exaggerating, Intel is actually pretty screwed. AMD is coming out with a 16 core processor on the same AM4 platform that this computer runs on, that hundreds of other builds have started running on, and will work on the new X370 or something like that motherboards with PCIe 3.0, meaning there's going to be a 16 core processor on a mainstream platform, and it's less than $1,000. Now it is still more expensive, but at the same time, it's 16 cores at like 140 watt TDP. Pretty awesome stuff, and I think it was pretty close to 5 gigahertz. It might be one of those chips. It may be one of those chips that you can actually take to 5 gigahertz if you really tried it. That being said, I do think that the 8 core processors are going to be better at overclocking than the 16 core and 12 core processors, but they are coming and it is super exciting. Navi, the lid has been lifted off and we have the RX 5700 XT and the RX 5700. These graphics cards are complicated. They're a new process, the RDNA, and yet they don't really successfully replace anything in the Vega line above a Vega 64. So the Vega 64 and the RX 5700 XT, I think, are going to be within a too close of a margin because they did not actually compare the two in their presentation. They actually strayed away from that and compared it to the 56, which is cut down from the 64. That being said, it is supposed to be competing directly with the 2070 and the 2060. So as long as it's better than the 2070, then there will actually be some improvement over the Vega 64. But I do believe that when it comes to actual computational intensive workloads, the 64 probably actually still comes out ahead, which is why AMD themselves didn't stray away from the idea that Vega isn't going away, that Vega is just going to be for computational workloads and where Navi will be for gaming workloads. Essentially, the difference between a Volta-based card or the RTX-based chips from NVIDIA. NVIDIA isn't taking the RX 5700's line down. They're actually going to be refreshing their line, or allegedly refreshing their line, with the RTX Super Edition. And those are supposed to be replacing every card in the line with a slightly faster, slightly more overclocked version of themselves, with the TI variant actually being a new core. Which, if true, does mean that NVIDIA is taking AMD's threat of Navi very seriously. There's a possibility that what we're seeing of Navi really is just the tip of the iceberg. As kind of a new architecture comes out, you have to decide if you're going to go ham with it or just kind of hold back a little bit. NVIDIA's tactic is to release a good chunk of their line first, with like the 2070, the 2080, and the 2080 Ti all coming out at once. AMD's strategy for the last few years, though, has only been to release 2 cards. Now, this is a new architecture, so we could possibly be seeing say a 580? Probably within the next year, because they really don't want to undercut the Radeon 7, which is a card they released this year that currently competes with the 2080. And like, it's halfway, but it's weird. That card's weird. I do like it, but it's weird. So essentially, AMD isn't going to release a 5800. I guess you could call it 5800. They aren't going to release that card because they don't want to compete directly with themselves. But next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull one out. And to be completely honest, if this is really as scalable as they say, there's no reason they can't make a cheaper and a more expensive version of what they already have. Okay, that was the tech news. That was the discussion about the tech news. Now, let's get into the game news, because E3 is here, and E3 was looking like it was gonna be bad, but it ended up being quite good. All right, game news. So we're actually gonna talk about everyone but Nintendo first, because there's really not as much. Things that I picked away, Bethesda kind of admitted defeat. Fallout 76 is getting human NPCs because they can't carry the story on robots and journal entries. They just cannot do it. The story might actually be fixed, and if we get an actual human settlement, we might actually, have a reason to play it. That being said, I could see an interesting mechanic kind of developing around having human settlers, because it looks like it's actually human settlers coming to your settlement. I could see an interesting mechanic where you could have human settlers at your settlement and they work as traders and maybe even quest givers. I mean, the settlement system in the Fallout games is underutilized severely. You can see that from the sheer number of mods that attempt to fix it. So honestly, human NPCs Fallout 76, yes, make it playable and I will play it. New Halo got announced alongside Microsoft's new console, which unfortunately and fortunately, people like myself and many others who have built these things, they're ripping it up. There was a quote from the announcement trailer where it's like, with frame rates we've never seen before. They were talking about like 122 frames per second, which is kind of a gold standard when it comes to PC hardware. Like, if you can't hit 120 frames per second at like 1440p, then your hardware's not really that good. Or actually, I think it's at 1080p. But I digress. A console actually being able to hit that is cool, but if you know how screens and monitors work, you're actually physically limited to what your screen can do, and most TVs are only 60 hertz, which means they can only display 60 frames per second. You actually have to go out of your way to go above 60 hertz. Most gaming monitors that are branded that way, might not actually even be 100 hertz. Like this one right here is actually 75 or 80 hertz. I think it might be 80 hertz, but it's also FreeSync and it's like branded as a gaming monitor, but it's still not like 120 hertz. You're actually going to increase your costs significantly if you're buying things with 120 hertz in mind. just to put into perspective, that same one that's like 75 or 80 hertz, I can't remember the exact amount, is 1440p and was like $200. If I were to get a 1080p version of that exact monitor with 120 hertz and FreeSync, it was around the same cost. So at 1440p, it's like $400, and at like 4K, it's like ridiculous. So essentially, and these are just 28 or 30-inch monitors. We're not talking about like 40-inch screens or 50-inch screens. Those are all running at 60 hertz. So essentially, there's going to be more power in the Xbox than the screen you can put it on, which is shocking, but also could possibly tick the needle towards higher refresh rates, which is a good thing overall. Oh yeah, and Keanu Reeves pretty much took the internet by storm by being in Cyberpunk 2077, a game which is surprising to say the least. Like, from what I have seen of the game, it is unique and it is CD Projekt Red. I actually cannot wait for Cyberpunk 2077. I've actually played, I think, every CD Projekt Red game, Witcher 1, 2, and 3. Did they make anything past The Witcher? I don't know. But I have actually been following the company for a very long time. They were the first virtual tit that I think I've ever seen. So, yes, Cyberpunk 2077 looks awesome. Keanu Reeves is in it, except for Nintendo, which, my God, this Direct was the best Nintendo Direct ever. Like, this is something that, like, people made fake Directs and to overhype things, and it was at the rate, like, I can't even speak. I'm so excited from it. It was almost non-stop games. So the Direct actually opened up with our Smash reveal of the hero from Dragon Quest actually being in the game, which, yeah, kind of cool. And you can play as like every hero, which, depending on your favorite Dragon Quest, is a cool thing. We then got a slew of JRPGs on the Switch. We're talking Dragon Quest, Ni no Kuni. There's so many, and I am a JRPG lover, so I'm totally going to be playing them. We also got the reveal that like every Resident Evil ever is going to be on the Switch, which, like, okay. We got an update on a couple of games like Astral Chain, and we got an update on Deus Ex Machina. we got an update on Demon Ex Machina, and they revealed and announced No More Heroes 3. Yes, okay, so that game's coming out. The reveal trailer for that was great. And then I guess we should probably talk about the first party stuff. Luigi's Mansion 3, we saw more of it, and it actually looks good now. Portrait Ghosts are back. They're just now called Character Ghost. And if you actually watch the Treehouse, which I did, they seem to have a lot of personality to them. They're not just straight like, oh ho hum, I am reading a book in a library, or I am the woman with the broken glass, or the baby that just threw stuff at you, which I love Luigi's Mansion 1. I'm not knocking Luigi's Mansion 1. Just saying, some of the Portrait Ghosts, if you don't actually read, are pretty generic. And then this game, it looks like they're not as cut and copy. Now, their designs are definitely more cartoony, and it's a lot less glum looking than the original, which I think was kind of an appropriate choice given the subject matter of Luigi and Haunted Mansions. I mean, the first one was an anomaly to begin with, but game's looking good, and I'm now looking forward to it. The first trailer, I was like, they just reused the assets from Dark Moon, which they did. They admitted to. So the fact that now we got that our Switch assets, everything looks good. Animal Crossing, we finally know the title. It's Animal Crossing New Horizons. The concept is you literally are dropped on a deserted island with Tom Nook, and you have to build the whole island. And I'm like, yes, I love this. Now that I know what it's about, do I have villagers? Oh, yep, I have other villagers. They will come to my island later. Cool. And you get to place things everywhere. There's no like restrictions, and there's like multiplayer for like 8 people. It all looks pretty awesome. Unfortunately, that game did get delayed into next year, but as complete as it looked in the treehouse footage, as a game developer, I could tell you every smoke and mirror they did to make that game look good. Essentially, they most likely have exactly 1 season completed, the summer season, and the dialogue for the game is definitely not complete at this point because any character you talk to in the demo was specifically mentioning E3 directly. Now, of course, that could just be, developer trickery, but we saw a very slim number of animals in the actual trailer, and those same animals were in the demo, which means I think those are the only ones that are actually in any state of completion. There's also new animations that they have to do for all of them. They have to make sure that none of them clip through the textures. On top of that, they really didn't show you a single villager house, and that's for a good reason. I don't think the mechanic is fully completed. These are things that fortunately and unfortunately will need to be ironed out. And honestly, I would much prefer their answer of, we don't want to kill ourselves making this game, so please give us time. I honestly, as a developer myself, love that they are doing that they gave them that time that they need to complete the game. So take the time you need. I can wait for Animal Crossing. I will buy it. I will lose my life to it. I will sort of be in debt to a raccoon probably forever. So yeah, Animal Crossing was awesome. And then also we got the announcement that Spyro and Lucky's Tale, like a Microsoft game, is ending up on the Switch yet again. And I think that's everything. I can't seem to think of anything more important. So I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Okay, that's the kind of bullshit that they pulled in this. Banjo in Smash! Yes! Just yes! Like, the meme is real! And the trailer they did for it, yeah! Yeah! I might die of a heart attack if I keep that up. Banjo and Smash, I can't believe it. I'm Banjo and Kazooie. That game is my childhood. I've rebought that game on the Xbox 360 so that I could play it without emulating it illegally. I have an N64 now. I might just buy them like next week or something. Or maybe even this week, depending on how expensive they are. But Banjo and Smash! And then the cherry on top of an otherwise awesome direct. Breath of the Wild 2. An actual sequel to Breath of the Wild. I can't even comprehend how they kept that secret. Like, no wallet, why? So, with all that was the Nintendo Direct. That killed me. I am now dead. You are speaking to my ghost. Blech. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed watching an ADHD Nintendo fan go crazy over the announcement of a fucking bear and a bird in a fighting game, and you know what that button is. And if you dislike this video, well, I'm not lying, so I'm not even gonna say that. So, thank you for joining me on this journey. That was a re-hyping. Like me just talking about it to the camera hyped me back up again. So thank you guys for watching. Wolfie out.